Yeah, I'd love to ask, like, for example, in Canada, it's really, really hard to find a doctor. Like, I was living there for 5 years, and it's like really hard to find a private doctor to go to. And so, you kind of end up on this waiting list, and then you finally get to somebody, and you're like, oh, can I do, XYZ blood test, listening to someone like you? And the doctor's like, oh, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
What suggestions would you have if you had like just a top tier list for someone to go, hey, no, I really want these, and to get some good guidance when they maybe don't
Yeah.
have the choice of just going and finding a private doctor or getting to, each country has different
Yeah.
restrictions and recommendations. Like, what would you suggest?
It's such a good point. So, I mean, the easy thing to do, if they're, look it up. You can either the look at the functional medicine group, so IFM, Institute for Functional Medicine, and look up who is trained in your area. Or you can also go to ours, which is RECODE. You can go to literally just look at my cognoscopy. So we recommend that everybody who is 40 or over, and again, if there's a history of dementia, I would move it to 35, get a cognoscopy. It's easy. And I have to say, it's much more pleasant to have a cognoscopy than it is to have a colonoscopy. So having had both of those, much easier. So, and that's basically three things. And you can look up mycognoscopy.com. You can get some simple blood tests, and you can look and see what doctors are near you that have been trained. So we've trained over 2,000 doctors in 10 different countries, including Canada, and all over the U.S. And you can look to see, who is close by and who's trained and who's doing the right things. And by the way, we're also now training, we've trained neuropsychologists and health coaches and nursing practitioners, all this, but we're now training dentists as well because they are really realizing that a lot of what drives cognitive change is living in your mouth. It's the mercury that's there. It's do you have gingivitis? It's what happened to your microbiome. It's do you have enough airway that you're actually getting enough oxygenation at night. We see people who don't realize they're dropping their oxygen saturation, which should be up in the 96 to 98%. They're dropping down to 85 or even 75 while they're sleeping at night. That is not good for you. And on the other side of that, Josh, have you ever done EWAT?
No, I don't.
So that's exercise with oxygen therapy. Now, the good news is you're obviously doing a lot of this by the amazing climbs you're doing. But the idea here is the opposite. We're trying to increase your oxygenation while you're working out. So you're really getting oxygenation while you've got great blood flow to the far reaches of your brain. And that is such a fantastic thing. Now, at 30, you don't have to worry about that as much. But if you're over 50, it's something to think about. So what you're doing is you're now saying, okay, I'm going to make sure to get optimal oxygenation. And in fact, going up and down gives you the best of both worlds because on the upside, you're delivering the oxygen and the blood flow. On the downside, you don't want to do too low, but when you have mild, like when you're doing some climbing, or at altitude, then what happens there is your body is responding by making trophic factors that are trying to say, wait a minute now, don't lose these synapses, let's keep them going. Now, you don't want to stay in that situation. You don't want to go and live at 10,000 feet or 20,000 feet, obviously, for years. You want to make it so that you have exposure and then you come back. That's back to hormesis. Hormesis is really interesting, and it's pushing your body to respond. But again, you don't want to go so far that it can't respond, which is why you don't want to go from zero to a marathon right away, work up to it. And you don't want to keep it there for a long time. You want to hit it and then come back and hit it, which is, again, why exercising has been so helpful for so many people. And we do have people, by the way, who will kind of under exercise. We'll say, look, you have some cognitive decline. It's not too bad yet. We can reverse it, no problem. Let's do this. And they say, well, I'm just going to walk a little bit. No, you've got to get your heart rate up. You've got to get the oxygenation up, which is why I love EWAT. You get the heart rate up, you get the blood flow up, you get the oxygenation up.